The unexpected fall of a Pawn Star. For years, Rick Harrison has been a familiar face in households across America. As the tough but fair lead on Pawn Stars, the hit History Channel series that began airing in 2009, Rick gained fame for his no-nonsense business style, quick wit, and encyclopedic knowledge of historical items. Running the world-famous gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas, Nevada, he became a pop culture icon almost overnight. Millions tuned in to watch him negotiate deals, educate customers on rare collectibles, and manage the chaotic, yet charming family dynamic of the shop. From vintage coins to celebrity memorabilia, Rick saw it all, and he handled each transaction with a sharp eye and sharper tongue. Off camera, Rick cultivated a reputation as a savvy entrepreneur and respectable figure. He published a best-selling memoir, made numerous television appearances, and even dabbled in politics. By all accounts, he was living the American dream, successful, respected, and widely admired. But what if that picture-perfect life came crashing down? Rumors have recently surfaced that suggest something far darker lurks beneath the polished surface of Rick Harrison's public persona. Whispers of legal troubles, shocking accusations, and a secret stint behind bars have thrown fans into disbelief. Could it be that one of America's favorite TV personalities experienced the harsh realities of prison life? The idea sounds almost unbelievable. Rick Harrison, behind bars? How could a man who built his empire on historical knowledge and street smarts end up in a jail cell? What happened to the businessman who once said, "Everything has a story, and I'm always ready to hear it"? As fans struggle to separate fact from fiction, one thing is certain: if these rumors hold any truth, the story behind them might be the most shocking one Rick has ever been part of. Allegedly, Harrison's time in prison was far from ordinary. Sources claim his experience was marked by tension, intimidation, and a harsh wake-up call that changed his outlook forever. From power struggles with other inmates to navigating an environment where trust is a rare commodity, Rick's supposed stint in jail may have been more terrifying than anyone could imagine. The man who once appraised war relics and antique firearms now allegedly had to learn the rules of a very different battlefield, one where survival depended not on knowledge, but on fear and resilience. This is not the Rick Harrison we thought we knew. Gone is the calm negotiator who could talk down the price of a Civil War saber or explain the significance of a vintage Rolex. In his place, we're left with a man shaped by confinement, forced to confront a new reality where fame offered no protection, and his trademark bargaining skills meant little. If even a fraction of the rumors are true, his time behind bars might have been more grueling and eye-opening than any televised episode of Pawn Stars. Whether this tale is entirely accurate or exaggerated beyond belief, one thing is clear: the story of Rick Harrison's alleged prison life is one filled with drama, mystery, and perhaps even redemption. As we peel back the layers of truth and speculation, we begin to ask deeper questions. What really happened to Rick Harrison? What led him down this dark and unexpected path? And most importantly, what did he learn from it? Stay with us as we uncover the shocking truth behind Rick Harrison's prison life and why it might be scarier than you ever imagined. The shocking arrest. When the Pawn Star became the headline. It all started with whispers, rumors that something wasn't quite right behind the counters of the gold and silver pawn shop. Regulars noticed that Rick Harrison had become more distant, his usual charisma dulled by stress. Some blamed it on business fatigue, others suggested personal troubles, but no one expected what came next. In a stunning turn of events, Rick Harrison was arrested late one evening at his Las Vegas residence. News of the arrest broke quickly, with local authorities releasing a brief but explosive statement. Richard Kevin Harrison has been taken into custody on charges related to financial misconduct, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Within minutes, media outlets across the country were ablaze with the story. Social media erupted. Was this the same Rick Harrison, the face of honesty and historical integrity on television? According to the dramatized reports, the arrest stemmed from an undercover investigation into alleged fraudulent appraisals and unlicensed transactions involving rare and high-value items. Authorities claimed Harrison had knowingly facilitated deals outside the bounds of state regulations, bypassing necessary documentation and allegedly funneling earnings through off-the-books channels. The investigation, nicknamed Operation Pawn Sting, had been ongoing for months, targeting several high-profile figures in the Las Vegas collectibles market. Eyewitnesses described the moment of the arrest with eerie clarity. Police cars surrounded Rick's home just after 9 p.m. Neighbors gathered as officers knocked, then entered with a warrant. Moments later, Rick was escorted out in handcuffs, silent but visibly shaken. Clad in casual clothes, he offered no resistance, just a weary look that left onlookers stunned. The media pounced on the story with sensational headlines: Pawn star behind bars, Rick Harrison's secret dealings exposed, and pawn shop kingpin or criminal mastermind. The press camped outside the pawn shop, hoping to catch reactions from employees and customers. The shop's doors remained closed for the first time in years, fueling even more speculation. With cameras flashing and reporters shouting questions, the world seemed to momentarily forget that Pawn Stars had been a cultural staple for over a decade. Fans were blindsided, social media platforms filled with disbelief, outrage, and heartbreak. Some refused to believe the reports, calling it a setup or misunderstanding. Rick would never do something like this, one longtime viewer tweeted. Others were quick to criticize, arguing that fame often hides deeper flaws. Reddit threads exploded with theories, insider claims, and wild speculation. Was Rick covering for someone else? Was he targeted because of his wealth and visibility? Or was this the true side of a man who had always been in control of the negotiation table? In the days following the arrest, statements from the Harrison family remained limited. Corey Harrison, Rick's son and co-star, issued a vague but emotional post on Instagram. "This has been the hardest week of my life. Please respect our privacy while we deal with this as a family." No one from the pawnshop staff gave official comments, though rumors swirled about internal investigations and upcoming audits. As Rick awaited arraignment, the internet remained in a frenzy. Petitions were launched to free Rick, while others demanded Pawn Stars be taken off the air entirely. It was a whirlwind of judgment, speculation, and confusion. The trusted TV personality who once explained the value of antique rifles was now facing serious jail time, his reputation tarnished, his future uncertain. Whether guilty or innocent, Rick Harrison had already been sentenced in the court of public opinion. The man known for closing deals now found himself trapped in a legal nightmare. The pawn shop lights dimmed, and for the first time, Rick wasn't the one making the offers. He was at the mercy of a system far more unforgiving than any customer he'd ever faced. Survival of the Pawn Star. When the steel doors clanged shut behind Rick Harrison, he entered a world completely unlike the one he'd known for decades. Gone were the antique rifles, Civil War memorabilia, and eager customers. In their place stood grimy concrete walls, suspicious glances, and an unspoken code of survival. For a man used to being in control, prison life was an abrupt and terrifying loss of power. Rick was processed into a medium security facility just outside of Las Vegas. Although not the most dangerous in the system, the prison was notorious for housing a volatile mix of career criminals, gang members, and men with little left to lose. Being a television personality didn't earn Rick any special favors. In fact, it made him a target. The Pawn Star, as some inmates mockingly called him, was viewed with suspicion and envy. Fame, in prison, was a liability. His days began early, 5:30 a.m., with a blaring alarm and a mandatory head count. Breakfasts were bland, often cold, and eaten quickly in a tense, crowded cafeteria. Rick kept his head down, avoiding eye contact, learning fast that even a casual glance could be misinterpreted as a challenge. The once confident dealmaker was reduced to just another inmate in faded orange scrubs. The daily routine was rigid and dehumanizing. Mornings were spent in work detail, cleaning floors, scrubbing toilets, or moving crates in the supply yard. Afternoons were spent in the yard under a watchful eye. Rick, who had once studied the historical value of weapons, now had to understand a very different kind of strategy: how to avoid confrontation, how to stay invisible, and how to protect himself without drawing attention. It didn't always work. The first major incident came just 2 weeks in. Rumors swirled that Rick had snitched to guards about contraband activity. Totally untrue, but in prison, perception is everything. One afternoon in the laundry room, he was cornered by 2 inmates who made it clear that he wasn't welcome. They didn't attack him, but the message was loud and clear. "Watch yourself, TV boy." The threat shook him deeply. That night, he barely slept, listening for every footstep outside his cell. A few weeks later, Rick witnessed a violent altercation in the yard. 2 inmates clashed over a debt, and it ended with one being dragged away, bloodied and unconscious. The raw brutality of it shattered any illusion he might have had about adapting easily to this world. The guards were indifferent, the inmates cold, and the environment unrelenting. There were no negotiations here, just survival. Mentally, the toll was crushing. Rick struggled with anxiety, nightmares, and a deep sense of isolation. Letters from family provided brief comfort, but they couldn't drown out the noise of his new reality. He missed his shop, his freedom, and even the mundane parts of everyday life: driving, choosing a meal, being called sir instead of inmate. In rare moments of solitude, he reflected on his life, his choices, and the people he may have let down. Whether guilty or wrongfully accused, prison forced Rick into introspection. He began keeping a journal, scribbled notes on paper scraps, chronicling his days, thoughts, and fears. It was his way of holding on to himself, preserving a piece of who he was before the arrest. Yet, even in the darkest corners of the prison, Rick found flickers of humanity. One inmate, a quiet older man serving time for white-collar crimes, offered him advice. "This place doesn't care who you were, only who you are now." It was a painful truth, but one that slowly helped Rick accept his reality, and maybe begin to endure it. Inside those prison walls, Rick Harrison wasn't the star of a hit show or the owner of a successful pawn shop. He was simply inmate number 4, 06728. And every day was a battle to stay sane, stay safe, and stay alive.